Hello and welcome back. So before I move on, I want to do a quick recap of the rules we've used so far, and then after that I'll introduce you to another rule called the quotient rule, and then we'll do a problem using that, but I think I'll save that for the next video. So far we've used the power rule, and the power rule says that if you have x to the n prime, that equals nx to the n minus 1. And an example of that is, say we had x cubed and we were looking for x cubed prime, or the derivative of x cubed, that equals 3x squared. And then in the power rule problems, even though I didn't mention it, we used the sum and difference rules. So we had the sum rule, which says that if you're looking for a plus b prime, that's the same as a prime plus b prime. So if you had a problem that was, say, x cubed plus 5 prime, that's just the same as finding x cubed prime plus 5 prime. And so that would equal, we know x cubed prime is 3x squared from up here. And then we know that 5 prime, that's another thing. I also mentioned the constant multiple rule. Constant multiple. And that rule just basically says that if you have a constant, let's say I'll call it k, and you have k prime, any constant, and the derivative of any constant is always going to be 0. So 5 prime, 6 prime, 3 prime, 2 prime, it's always going to be 0. So this equals 3x squared. Then I'm out of space, so I'm going to erase this. And so then I mentioned the product rule was the last thing we did, and that one says that if we had AB, two things multiplied by each other, we have AB prime, that equals, to find the derivative of AB prime, you do A times B prime plus B times A prime. And you can choose any one of these to be A, any one to be B, because if you see they're added together, and then in one of them is prime times the original, and the other one, it's the other one prime times the original. And I also mentioned that e to the x prime is just e to the x. And so for this one we did a problem that was like x cubed e to the x. And so we picked one for A, one for B. And we also used the fact that e to the x prime is e to the x, and we solved that. You can go back, I think it was the last video I did, so you can go back and check that out. So in the next video, I'll introduce, let's say we had y equals t squared plus 1 over t minus 1. And so far, and we were told to find dy over dt. And so far, none of these rules that we've learned so far actually can be used to solve this problem. So we have another rule called the quotient rule, and I'll introduce the quotient rule in the next video. So keep watching. The hardest part about these derivative problems is that is figuring out which rule to actually use. So hopefully you have some idea now of which rules to use for what, but I'll introduce the quotient rule, and I'll probably do another video on which will help you decide which rule to use based on what problem you get. Because on most exams, you're not going to be told which rule to use. You'll just be given a problem like this, and you'll be asked to find dy over dt. So keep watching, and I'll introduce you to the quotient rule.